we're live.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Isle of Palm City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, October 27th at about 6 p.m. This is a virtual meeting due to COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to acknowledge that both the press and the public were duly notified of this meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. If you would, feel free to join me as I say a prayer to be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance and then roll call. Dear wise and loving Father, as we enter into this holiday season, I thank you for everything you have blessed us with, for life itself, our health in this island paradise we call home. Let us remember that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We all know someone who's been affected. Let us pray for the end of this disease. Please help us find peace. We are but one human race, and we all need to cherish the diversity you have blessed us with. I ask that you look over our families, our residents, our employees, our visitors, and especially those who may be suffering. Lord, please look over both our public safety personnel and military who protect our island, our country, and our world 24/7, 365. Today, I ask for your guidance and wisdom in making decisions that affect our residents and our businesses for not only now, but for our future generations. It is in your holy name I pray, amen. Ron, could we do a Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I just lost my words there. Sorry, y'all. I just lost my paper. I'm sorry. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And somebody please help me out. I'm having it. I lost it.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I don't know why I lost it here. It just dropped off. Nicole, roll call, please.
Absolutely. Councilmember Streetman.
Here.
Councilmember Bell.
Here.
Councilmember Popson.
Here.
Councilmember Pounds.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Here.
Councilmember Moy.
Here.
Councilmember Ward is here. Mayor Carroll.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I apologize for that. I wrote this and I left a whole paragraph out of there. So I'm bad. Citizens' comments. This month, this is going to be our last month doing it this way where people have submitted their comments. Next month, we're going to try to do it where people can actually speak live on Zoom. So we're going to give it a shot and bear with us, but we're trying to move along with technology. Nicole, can we read our first 30 minutes worth of comments, not to exceed 3 minutes per person?
Absolutely. This is from John Murray. Thank you to the Isle of Palms Garden Club and the city who worked together to make this happen. Tom, a Navy veteran from Daytona, Florida, travels around the United States restoring historical markers. Tom has been in 49 states, sans Alaska. Last week, Tom traveled to the Isle of Palms and restored our marker before the rains moved in, although he did get a little wet from the sprinkler system. In his early days, it took over 12 hours to restore a marker. Now he can accomplish restoring both sides of the marker in approximately 6 hours. Another thank you to our Post on the Coast comrades and members of the Post Auxiliary for their donations to the restoration. Hope all take pride in honoring our armed forces and veterans and our city that makes America better. And he includes several pictures of the Blue Star Memorial highway marker sign with that particular email. Brian Abel, 9510 Palmetto Drive. If the city council decides to retain a water sport provider at the Marina, Tidal Wave should be given the opportunity to enter a bid like everyone else. There should be no preferential treatment given to any vendor. We support city council's decision. This is from Sean Griffin. We support City Council's decision to terminate the tidal wave lease. We have been locals for 21 years now and have enjoyed using tidal wave over the years. Regardless, we agree with council because the old lease was not fair to taxpayers as we were losing money on the terms and on the enforcement of revenue due. Additionally, from what I understand, there were several DHEC violations in the past. I think council needs to fully disclose their rationale for terminating the lease so more citizens can better understand why council voted the way they did. Furthermore, the behavior of tidal wave and its supporters is abhorrent. The abuse that council is enduring is abhorrent and needs to be stopped. Sandra Winnick of Mount Pleasant, I am confused at your disregard for the law. South Carolina DOT issued a letter to council stating state roads must be reopened. I call for action to respect the law. Same judicial system that will finally straighten out this disrespect. Eileen Hyde, Mount Pleasant, I respectfully add my voice to those who have requested that you open up parking on Palm Boulevard to all. Why is it suddenly such a safety concern? Why don't others in South Carolina have the right to enjoy public beaches we all pay tax dollars to support? John Bell, Mount Pleasant, while we all appreciate South Carolina DOT stepping in, none of us ever anticipated blatant disregard for their directive. It is your city council's actions have caused untold damage to the citizens of our county and state. If you really want to help the fake problems, stop the construction of a new hotel on the island, reduce or eliminate short-term rentals, stop residential construction. No federal funds will ever be available to assist IOP as it's a barrier island. State and county funds are granted by the grace of our citizens. Your positions are granted by IOP citizens. All grants are at risk. We will not allow you to continue to use safety or any virus to continue your disregard of existing law. Tiffany Talent of Hanahan. First, I'm extremely disappointed in the council's prior decision to close the land side of Palm Boulevard. I hope you will consider the following during your meeting today in regards to parking. 1, parking should not pay by smartphone. People should not be required to have a smartphone to park at the beach. Also, cell reception on Palm is terrible. I have seen parking apps that are iPhone only as an Android user, it is extremely difficult to do the whole text this number thing. I waited 30 minutes in downtown Charleston for a reply back, and by the time I did, I had found other parking. Number 2, parking rate. Parking should not be so expensive that people who come regularly cannot afford to go. $10 a day is beyond outrageous. As someone with multiple sclerosis whose health benefits from going to the beach, anytime you make it stressful or impossible for me to come, you are responsible for the negative impact it has on my health. Number 3, if you have paid parking, we need to be paying for something: showers, bathrooms, lifeguards, and of course a safe place to park. The current state of Palm Boulevard is pretty shoddy, and I don't see how you can justify charging someone to park there. Number 4, residents from IOP must be treated the same way. If you expect me, who cannot work, to pay to park, then I expect you to pay to park as well. Residents should not get special treatment. Number 5, golf cart parking. It doesn't count towards the number of parking spaces you have for beach access. Beach parking should be for beach parking. Commercial parking should not be allowed. Number 6, day trippers are not your problem. The people disrespectful of the beach are the vacationers renting on the island. I cannot tell you how many times I have filled other people's holes and seen people come from vacation rentals with booze and take over the beach, blasting music with no regard for those around them. If you enjoy your private, quiet beach like we all know you do, then day trippers are the people you should want there. Number 7, I hate that it has been a fight since I moved here to access the beach, but I will continue to fight against unjustified and discriminatory rules. Number 8, remember what SCDOT said. Lois Bell, Mount Pleasant. Obey the law. As a city council, you are not allowed to disregard state laws nor interpret them to your benefit. Privatization must stop. You are negatively impacting my life. You have been advised by SCDOT that you cannot take away public access to our roads, parking, or beach access. State law is very clear. Remove all restrictions, improve IOP, stop building a new hotel. And then she posts section 5, Section 5-1-22, public policy for incorporation of publicly owned property established as stated by the General Assembly. Chris Santos of Mount Pleasant. My family has enjoyed free and open beach access on IOP for generations, as it is one of Charleston's finest hallmarks. My opinion likely means little, but it's my duty to continue trying to protect our way of life, especially from new residents who suddenly seek to make changes. I understand that from a finance perspective, charging beachgoers makes sense. It generates revenue. It also avoids one of the greatest qualities of the Low Country that we've enjoyed since our founding. Please attempt to find alternative means of boosting revenue. Get creative for your taxpayers rather than going full steam ahead with this restrictive plan. Once paid parking is implemented, it will almost certainly remain perpetually. Additionally, the cost to enjoy our great beaches will only be voted higher moving forward. The cost of parking downtown has nearly tripled in my lifetime. It is an unfavorable plan for almost all of Charleston County residents. You're also putting Sullivan's Island in a tough position. We already have the most actively policed beaches on the East Coast, which I can speak to from experience. We're talking about our low country way of life. Please find another way to generate the revenue. In regards to the car to bus, it is one of the more insulting implementations we've seen here. How many of you would pack your car for the beach, drive to a parking lot, unpack the car, repack on the bus, lug beach gear from the bus stop to the beach, and then repeat on the way home? If you've any real experience, that sounds stressful, impractical, and otherwise miserable. Think about how dirty that bus will be, sunscreen, sweat, and potentially pets. What if it rains? What if there's a problem with the bus and it falls out of service while people are waiting to return home? What if a neighbor calls to inform you of an emergency at your home? We really shouldn't have to make this argument. It's much more of a loss to locals than I think you understand. And if you do understand and still support the plan, then I'd ask you to look inward and self-reflect. Lastly, I genuinely like to get your stance on whether you think Isle of Palms residents, many of which are new residents in the area, should compensate Mount Pleasant residents for access to our goods and services. We have a good thing going locally. Why tamper with a formula that works so well? Please be a better team player. I hope clarity finds its way toward you. Margaret Morse, Mount Pleasant, parking along public roads and access to public beaches is my right as a taxpaying citizen who contributes to both. Christine Donovan. After listening to the real property meeting on October 7th, I was disappointed to hear Ryan suggest and Kevin continue to advocate for the commercial use of what was the water sports dock area, suggesting that it is better to retain a commercial permit for the dock instead of converting it to a passive. I think that the actual term is community dock. Does not make sense unless, and I hope this is not the case, there are council members who will try to revert this space to commercial use. Desiree also made the comment that perhaps in a few years, council might decide to allow commercial enterprise back in. Residents spoke and council voted to change that area from commercial to passive public space. To continue or even give the impression that this will always be up for debate does not seem to be a good idea for the character of our island. All council members should support and stand behind a vote that was even taken if their opinion was in the minority. The fight is over, tidal wave should be removed, and the space should become public, free space for a long time. Please move on and move forward. Additionally, I believe we need a group to oversee the marina. This has taken up far too much time and energy, and council members who are not necessarily experts in leases and marina management have been expected to oversee this very large property owned by the city. The Real Property Committee seems frustrated and confused about the next step. Planning this public space should not become the sole responsibility of 3 council members, 2 of whom were opposed to the idea. Additionally, decisions that are made this year may fall into the hands of an entire new committee next year. We need continuity in the oversight of the marina. I believe that a committee/department should be formed of residents and perhaps even paid experts who can manage the area. Alexandra Atwell, Mount Pleasant, please be advised that my husband and myself strongly object to our rights being stripped from us without our vote. Park along Palm Boulevard is a right we have as citizens and taxpayers, and we expect that right to be upheld. Susan Heffron, Mount Pleasant, please allow parking on state-owned Palm Boulevard. Darcel Poe, Mount Pleasant. I live in Dunes West and have for over 16 years. I teach high school and greatly enjoy coming to the beach for my relaxation and exercise. Remember, we as citizens have a legal right to park and access all public rights of way. Stop taking away public parking spaces. I have missed many opportunities this year because of no place to park. I support all legal battles to win. David Scott, Mount Pleasant. I am a disabled veteran who has been told by multiple medical professionals that access to outdoor spaces is extremely beneficial to my continuing treatment. Please stop trying to prevent public access to the beaches, especially during a time when it's been proven that being outdoors is safer than being confined indoors. Depression is spiking across the country due to COVID, and it's been shown by multiple studies that being outside can reduce anxiety and depression. Sheila Bentley, Mount Pleasant. It is my understanding that you are disregarding the letter that you received from DOT. You do not own the highway that you are forbidding people from parking on, and you don't own the beaches that you are trying to forbid visitors and citizens from using. It's time to stop. Paula Genovese, Mount Pleasant. Why are you continuing to restrict parking on the land side of Palm Boulevard when the letter from SCDOT clearly stated that the restriction is not for you to impose on a state roadway? What needs to be addressed is the removal of the landscaping, fake mailboxes, and other obstacles some property owners have placed on the shoulders. These areas should be made into actual parking spaces, thus giving plenty of room for cars to park safely and add more room for vehicles to pull aside to allow emergency vehicles to travel down the middle of the road. Brian Olafson, Mount Pleasant, how can City Council continue to restrict parking along Palm Boulevard after the SCDOT issued their letter indicating this is not lawful? Will adjustments be forthcoming to comply with SCDOT's letter? Katie Nardone, Mount Pleasant, it's time for you to remove the no parking signs. I've had enough of the lies. Your original excuse was COVID, then you kept changing your reason. All the COVID rules have been lifted everywhere else in the state, and you know very well that the beach is safe. So have some regard for SCDOT when they say this is illegal, and have some respect for the residents and visitors and take up those illegal signs. Delton Clay Haddon, Mount Pleasant, please do the righteous and legal thing and open up parking on IOP to your neighbors. Failure to do so would be against current judgment by SCDOT. Kristen Smith, Mount Pleasant, you know you are blessed to live on IOP. I raised 2 children there, and it is honestly a paradise. However, it is not your own private island. Be good stewards, make good decisions to protect what is great about the island, but understand and be reminded that it is not yours to own, it is yours to share. Mary Craper, Mount Pleasant, I support the law from SCDOT and feel strongly that all who desire should have the state law permitting parking on Palm Boulevard. Additionally, I request that the beach be available to the non-residents of IOP. It's everyone's beach to enjoy and respect. Richard Hauser, Johns Island, please explain to me why a Charleston County resident taxpayer is not allowed to park along state-maintained road to walk across a public access walkway to a public beach. Kathy Clark, Mount Pleasant. As a native Charlestonian, I've been going to Folly Beach and IOP for 60 years. The prohibition of parking along our state-owned and publicly funded roads show total disregard for residents and taxpayers of Charleston County who have funded numerous renourishment projects as well as state and county projects throughout the year. For years, we have watched as new residents move in and build landscaping to prohibit street parking, even in the rights of way on IOP. Taking the parking from Palm Boulevard is like telling the rest of the county residents and tourists who support our economy that the residents of the town feel they own the beach. Please do the right thing and undo this wrong that you have done to Charleston County residents. Sandra Street, Mount Pleasant, don't violate our rights. Cornelia Lynn Campbell, Mount Pleasant, the beaches are for everyone's enjoyments, not just for those fortunate enough to own a beachfront home or those who own homes and rent it out of state for profit. Additionally, parking on the public road should be allowed. Mount Pleasant does not prohibit islanders from using all of our resources in town or charge extra for parking. We aren't giving up, so please let's quit the nonsense and move forward to be a community. Ralph Petterit, Mount Pleasant, there is no more of an issue with cars parking on the west side of Palm Boulevard and crossing the street than residents and visitors on the west side of the street crossing Palm Boulevard. Keep the parking on the west side of Palm Boulevard open to the public and free. An alternative would be to designate authorized crossing locations if you are really concerned about safety. Frankie Crump, 63 Ocean Point. I have never felt that I and everyone on Palm Boulevard was safer since the land side was close to parking. Anyway, this can continue. Ann Burns, Mount Pleasant. It has come to my attention that despite a memo and directive from SCDOT concerning beach access parking and the legality of your desire to limit same on a state road, you have failed to take appropriate action and instead plan to maintain limited parking in this roadway. It is not clear to me under what theory of law you feel allows you to proceed in this fashion. Further attempts to blatantly privatize the IOP beaches have gobsmacked the community and residents of Mount Pleasant. I have spent many mornings quietly walking the beach. I have found it to be uncrowded, no litter, and frankly beautiful. Why you as a collective group feel that the beaches should be so untenable to visit for guests is beyond understanding, not to mention apparently illegal. The hubris you continue to demonstrate by maintaining your position of restricting free parking is cause for major concern, especially in light of the SCDOT memo. The people of Mount Pleasant have for years been good neighbors to you, yet you seem to be determined not to return common courtesy. It's very sad. I hope you will not only do the right thing, but the legal thing and undo the illegal parking rules you have set in place. Be decent human beings, gracious hosts, and good neighbors. John Bonner, Mount Pleasant. Attempting to eliminate parking on Palm Boulevard is a direct violation of SCDOT's communication and directive from September 23rd. The council's repeated effort to restrict parking due to COVID is not based on safety and is strictly rooted in privatizing public assets. The beaches are treasures that all Charleston County residents value. Please do the right thing for this community and end this political wrangling. Jennifer DeCenzo, Mount Pleasant. I am against the current order to block street parking on Palm Boulevard. I'm a resident and therefore pay taxes for the roads and beaches. The road does not belong to the city council members, and their decision to block this parking option is not their choice to make. Jeffrey Forsland, 241 Forest Trail. We need a new restaurant. We don't need more wasted, non-productive green space. Green space means wasted space, just like next to the Harris Teeter at the foot of the connector, revenue over cost. Mary D. Federico of Somerville. I grew up in the Charleston area and loved going to our local beaches. Never have I felt so unwelcome to our beaches as I do now. Since they do not want to abide by the rules of SCDOT, then perhaps they should be made to keep up the roads on the island with their own funds and no more support from the state. Why should the taxpayers from all over the area help support those easements and roads if they refuse to abide by the directives? Let the local businesses be supported strictly by the residents on the island, since parking has become a problem on the island. Fortunately, there are other beaches in other states that are happy to have my money. Glendon Nemes, 3006 Cameron Boulevard. I wish to notify the council of a larger problem on the Isle of Palms. I will use specific examples to highlight. For 3 days now, an unpermitted car has been parking in resident parking in front of 3007 Cameron. Additionally, it has been parked against flow of traffic, another violation. I have only called one time a day to have this violator either ticketed or asked to move his car and be educated about parking rules and signs. This is a chronic problem. 99% of the time I call about illegal parking, the officers, because of lack of training, don't do anything. Chief Cornett was notified a year and a half ago about this residential parking problem. I spoke with him and he assured me that I should call, and he had checked and there was no encroachment agreement with the state on the property. This area was illegally paved in. The non-permitted cars who are there in violation, yet his officers still are uninformed and do nothing. And may I point out why this is important? The city passed an ordinance that should allow residents legal extra parking in their neighborhoods, but on many blocks, the easement parking was green, landscaping, hardscape structures, fencing, illegal extra driveways, concrete and wooden barriers. So there is actually no easement or little easement parking available for those on the blocks who need it. Add to this the daily barrage of service providers and construction vehicles that never get permits, but take resident parking, and the problem is obvious over and over again. IOP Police Department, which residents pay for, have failed to do anything despite knowing it was illegal parking. I, as a resident, find this reprehensible. It affects quality of life negatively and only adds to other parking problems on the island unnecessarily. I also don't understand why the police department doesn't notify Carroll Realty of its responsibility to inform their renters of the local ordinances. The owner, thus the rental property company who manages, are by local ordinance mandated to post ordinances and notify renters in the house. The owners of rental properties also should have this responsibility. The same property has repeatedly been both a noise nuisance as well as a nuisance of parking for more than 5 cars on the property at night. Out of courtesy, I've notified Carroll Properties of violations prior to calling the police. I was ignored and treated rudely by them instead. Why won't Carroll Properties work with the residents to remedy this problem? And are the police not enforcing this law because it's the mayor's company? They have enforced this law on both my residence property and my rental property, and without even giving warnings. In addition, the new property owners at the corner of Cameron and 30th feel they do not have to follow local or state ordinances, as they continually cause a turning safety hazard by parking in the road or too close to the stop sign and intersection. Police department, when called, once again failed repeatedly to do anything about the violations. Owners continue to ignore the laws. As a full-time resident and taxpayer, I am trying to understand this police behavior. These state laws and local ordinances are both for safety and the greater good of local residences and homeowners on the Isle of Palms. Why does City Council pass these ordinances and then allow, IOP police not to enforce them? Why do the laws mean less on Cameron Boulevard? Why is enforcement so uneven? I, on the other hand, have had guests ticketed for less. Just last night, I was told by one of your officers that a car parked in the road, half of the road. That's time. Thank you. Catherine
For that
Riley.
comment.
I'm sorry?
That was 3 minutes for that comment.
Great. Thank you. Catherine Riley, 1 Sand Dollar Drive. Not sure what 10B under miscellaneous section is all about, but think that the city should focus on what we have and completing that. For example, Marina improvement, IOP roads, drainage improvement, before taking on the additional responsibility and expense of maintaining the SCDOT roads. If this is just about making the inland side of Palm Boulevard no parking, we just need to accept the DOT's decision, but there is no clear evidence that it poses a safety threat, as well as feedback from our own police and fire departments that currently there is no data to prove that there are or have been safety risks. Rusty Williamson, 605 Carolina. I cannot believe the city council members of the IOP are even considering taking control of state-owned roads on the IOP. Why even waste money on this? Who will pay for this? Please tell us exactly who brought this up. Christine Donovan, 31 26th Avenue. Please clarify for me and other residents and patrons of the marina who controls the parking in the area of the marina between the boat ramp and the intracoastal waterway. After reviewing the attachment to the marina lease, it is very confusing. As you move forward with new leases and plans for the public park area, please clearly delineate this area and communicate to patrons and residents what area is available and to whom. I request that there be plenty of parking available for residents who display proof of island residency, city taxpayers, as well as free golf cart and bike parking. Belinda Schaefer, 1300 Ocean Boulevard. Members of the Isle of Palm City Council, as a 45-year resident and voter, I'm very disturbed with the handling of, number one, the marina in general, and the seemingly lack of ability on council's part to work with Morgan Creek Grill and Tidal Wave leases. As a taxpayer, I would like to know how much money we are losing from the restaurant space sitting there going to waste. Number two, with regards to a recent article with former city council candidate Gandolfo and the tree episode, he was fine, but the city never collected a dime from him. Not sure why. I would like to know if you have a plan for collecting these funds. I just wonder what Mayor Bunch would think about all of this sad state of affairs, I must say. Robert Johnson, 31 21st Avenue. I am a 20-year resident of the IOP and have never seen the city so divided. Ever since this council was elected and you decided to try to privatize the island and disenfranchise our neighbors, there's been nothing but dissection. Did this council really think that it could confiscate the beach from the Low Country for the benefit of the islanders? Or more precisely, did the council really think that it could confiscate the beach in order to force our friends and neighbors to rent houses on a short-term basis for the benefit of the mayor and other councilors who have a financial vested interest in converting this wonderful place into Wrightsville Beach? How long until you try to demolish the recreation center in order to put up short-term rentals in order to garner a commission? You have lit a fire that you cannot extinguish. Our neighbors, their elected officials, the state and the courts are slapping you down at every turn. It is time to move on and go back to the way it has always been on this island, return all the parking spots, stop shaking down visitors, and end the costly lawsuit. Now is the time to move on. That closes your council comments.
Thank you very much, Nicole. I don't know how you do that because I'd still be on number 10 by now. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on. Consent agenda items. We have 5 things. The first 3 are approval of previous meetings minutes. Regular meeting, September 22nd, 2020. Special meeting, October 2nd, 2020. Special meeting, October 9th, 2020. And then B, approval of an amount not to exceed $23,000 for the roof repairs to the public works workshop to address ceiling condensation issues. And lastly, approval of increasing a provision for builder's risk insurance for the Marina Dock Rehabilitation Project by an amount not to exceed of $35,000. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Nicole, roll call, please.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan,
Aye.
Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Mayor Carroll.
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you very much. Moving on, reports from standing committees. First up the bat, Ways and Means. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. Yep, real quick, we'll do a financial review. Ron, if you don't mind putting that financial summary page up, please. These are results through the end of September. Real quick, you can see revenue year-to-date actual of just over 2.6 million. This compares to last year through the same time period of about 3 million. So we're about $355,000 under, primarily due to the COVID effect on our tourism money. To the right, you can see expenditures of about 4.1 million, rough numbers, compared to last year of about 3.1 million. So the difference is primarily expenditures on the public safety building as we're winding up that project. The general fund revenues and expenses are about in line with where we had budgeted them. And we have through the end of September, about 19.5 million in cash on hand, and about 7.7 million of that, or 39%, is in restricted money. And just one real quick comment, we had discussed earlier this year when we were doing the budget workshops as well as finalizing the budget, that we would look and see where we were with our revenue as we kind of went forward with COVID, to see if we needed to do any type of adjustment. And I don't think any of us are comfortable at this point doing any kind of adjustment given where we've been on revenue. We're pretty much in line with revenue, but it's just still too uncertain to do any type of adjustment on the budget, I think. So next item, Mayor, the only other thing from the minutes is actually our next meeting is November 17th at 6 o'clock. We have one item for consideration tonight. And Ron, if you'll go to the presentation deck on the Marina update, that would be great. And to our citizens' surprise and hopefully enjoyment, we're not going to executive session tonight. We'll discuss this topic right here. So I thought it would be helpful. We discussed some of this last week at Ways and Means, and there's a little bit more information here since we are hopefully in the final stages of finalizing and signing this lease arrangement. So we've got a timeline as well as just some general updates with regard to the Marina restaurant lease. So I'm going to ask Desiree, if you don't mind, just walking through the timeline, and then I'll come back and do a few bullets just to update residents primarily, since most of council has already heard this. So Desiree, do you mind?
Absolutely not. So as you all know, this process to secure a new tenant and a new lease for the Marina restaurant has been a long and laborious process that hopefully will conclude in the next couple of weeks, should everything work out well. The Chair of Ways and Means asked that I put together a timeline. This timeline is also available on the website under the project highlights section, but I think it'll be helpful to kind of take everybody through what the city has done in the past year, and even starting back in 2018 when council decided to pursue the request for proposals method to secure a new lease for the use of that space. That process started then, and I'm not going to go through every single action item included in the timeline, but as you can see, in June, the city advertised the call for offers to seek proposals for the restaurant and the designated dock space. Couple months later, in September, the city held a special council meeting for a public presentation of the 3 proposals that were received. At the end of the year in 2019, the city council decided and voted to enter into exclusive negotiations with the IOP Families Group, which was one of the proposers, one of the groups that responded to the request for proposals or call for offers. And at that point, the city entered a 90-day due diligence period for them to work with architects, work with consultants and contractors to sort of develop a letter of intent or a proposal, a more specific proposal to the city for the use of that building on operation of the restaurant at the Marina. Ron, can you go through? Okay, thank you. In April of 2020, a couple of weeks after the deadline of the original due diligence period, it was requested and granted an extension to that. Some of it was due to some complications in light of COVID, and also part of the negotiations related to parking and other details associated with the lease. So that was granted in April, and you all recall that this summer council engaged real estate attorneys to start developing a lease agreement. That first draft was presented to the group in mid-August, and for the next 2 months, almost 3 months, the city has been going through the negotiation process of that agreement with the IOP Families Group. We're presenting the lease that has been agreed to by the group and discussed through several meetings with City Council for ratification this month, or between October and November. And the group expects or plans to begin operations in the spring and summer of 2021.
Great. Thank you, Desiree. Appreciate that. And again, most of you have seen this, but primarily for residents that are tuning in tonight. So just a quick overview of the lease agreement. Complete renovation of the building and improved landscaping and parking lots. The city will not be directly investing into the property or building. No public funds will be used during the entire term of this lease on the building or restaurant grounds. Private investors will be responsible for the entire capital investment and risk, the construction management and risk, and the ongoing care and maintenance of a city-owned asset. The tenant, as Desiree mentioned, is the IOP Families Investment Group, led by the Lorenz and Bushnell families to include Michael Tall. Tenant shall absorb all costs to renovate the existing structure with additional outdoor seating. Landlord has final approval rights before the construction begins. Desiree mentioned one of the items that we've been working on all summer and most of this year has been the parking. The landlord will provide parking language in the lease to provide the exclusive use of the parking lot adjacent to the restaurant building in an as-is condition to be improved and enhanced by the tenant. Through a separate agreement with the existing Marina tenant for exclusive access to employee parking lot with overflow customer parking available in the adjacent shared parking lot. We have a map that'll show you kind of ownership or responsibility of each of the lots here in just a moment. The city will improve the existing employee parking lot. The docks will be provided to in an as-is condition to be used by restaurant patrons. The lease commencement date immediately upon full lease execution, to Desiree's point, hopefully in the next week or two. Ron, if you'll go to the next one, please, sir. Rent commencement date is August 1st of 21. Base rent is $40,000 for 2021, so that's 5 months worth of 2021. $100,000 per year paid monthly in year 2022 through 2024, and $120,000 in 2025. Rent will increase in every year thereafter at a 2% annual increase. There's also a provision for additional rent, 7% of gross sales over a breakpoint of $5 million for years 1 through 12. Beginning in years 13 through 25, the breakpoint will be reduced to $4 million. Other potential estimated revenue to the city: hospitality tax at 2%, roughly $3 million. Local option sales tax of about $600,000, and business license of about $300,000 over the life of this lease. The lease term shall expire on January 31st, 2045, which is coincident with the expiration of the existing tenant. The tenant shall be responsible for all expenses, including maintenance, insurance, and utilities, a triple net lease. And the last page we have here real quick is just the kind of how the parking is breaking out. So the pink salmon color closest to the restaurant, just to orient you real quick, that's an exclusive parking lot for the restaurant. Just to the left of that, the green is shared parking under the direction of the Marina manager. To the left of that's the yellow, the private parking lot available to the restaurant pursuant to an agreement with the Marina manager. And then the rest is exclusive to the Marina store or the Marina joint ventures. So Mayor, will stop right there and see if there are questions. Or Desiree, sorry, you have a comment?
I just want to point out that that L-shaped area that is included in the green space, shared parking lot.
Yeah, Desiree, sorry about that. I meant to mention that.
Okay, that area was previously encumbered in the former lease with the water sports operation as part of their upland lease premises. So that now becomes available to the city for use, you know, as part of the initiative for the parking, for the green space and, you know, additional resident-only parking, or, you know, in whatever form that the city council decides to use that space. So that has not been encumbered by any lease.
Thank you. Jimmy Ward, you're on mute before you get going. Sorry, Mayor.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to know what the chairman of the Real Property Committee has to say about all of this. This was the guy that was heading up this whole project. And I'd just like to hear his thoughts, most importantly of anybody.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this has been a cumbersome lease. It's been, as Desiree said, it's been very laborious, going back and forth between the attorneys from both parties. And it's you know, it's we're glad to get it, you know, done and out of the way. It's taken longer than what we anticipated, obviously. And the whole real property committee has worked on it along with, John Chelfie and Desiree and other people within the department in the city. I'm glad that we're able to get, I've been trying to do as much as we can to try to get as much information out to the public as possible. But like I said, it's contractually between the attorneys and everything. It's kind of been held up, but I'm glad we're able to get all this information out. Wish we could have gotten out sooner, but like I said, hopefully we can get everything signed and get them in the building and start working on it. But yeah, thanks, Jimmy.
Anyone else? Questions?
One more question, please, sir, if you don't mind.
Go
Can
ahead.
you hear me? So for the people that are watching at home, what's the process here? If we pass this tonight, then what's the second step to get things going?
The second step is we'll probably have a special council meeting a week from now to have a second reading and finalize.
And so then they can start construction right after that, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
That would be the goal. All leases need to be approved by council by two readings of an ordinance.
Councilmember Bell.
Just quick comment to Desiree's comment. And Desiree, correct me if you disagree. This would not be resident-only parking where we're green space due to ATAX money being used, but it's conceivable that would be golf cart parking, which in essence is visitors to the island and other welcome guests. The other comment I've got, having been on real property since 2018, we spent considerable time having to work around the edges of the previous bad leases. And, frankly, it has made this process incredibly difficult, working through the parking issues and just trying to manage the fact that leases are in place that are through 2045. And the real question is, are we smart enough now going forward to never enter into leases without due thought and process? This one has been well thought out, well constructed, real estate attorneys involved. And I don't know how the other ones got put together, but like I said, completing my third year on real property, I've never seen leases like that. And I think the attorneys and everyone involved would agree. It's been a very, very laborious and difficult process.
Thank you. Yes, Desiree, and then Susan.
Yes, just a quick comment to the first piece of Councilmember Bell's statement. There is nothing that would prohibit the city to ensure that parking in that space that currently now becomes available be for residents, free for residents. The same way that the city provides free parking to residents with a decal in the municipal lots at Front Beach, which are also city owned, that could also be implemented in this new area that is available to the city.
Desiree, free versus resident only. The comment was resident only.
Resident only, correct.
Yeah.
Councilmember Smith.
Thanks. Just a couple of things that I thought might be confusing for people who haven't followed all the ins and outs. And one is that when we say that this lease will expire at the same time as the tenant, I believe, to make it clear, we're talking about these coinciding with the expiration of the leases with Marina Ventures and the Marina store. Just something I noted in the presentation. The other is that when you look at the map for parking, it might be confusing to people who are very familiar with the site, and that the spaces that look like they are for tidal wave are actually not the ones that or that we're talking about being for green space or public space, are not the same as what tidal wave currently uses. And so that kind of threw me off, and I thought it might throw off other people. But technically, those are the spaces that are available to us. My understanding is that tidal wave kind of made an agreement separately to use a different set of spaces with the marina operator. So just in case that was throwing anybody off, I know that we do have residents that follow this very closely. And otherwise, I just wanted to thank everybody for all their hard work on this. It has been a long haul. And I think that I'm very grateful that we have island residents who are involved with taking this on. And also, I think everybody's looking forward to happy hour at this point, and hoping for a wonderful opening next year. So thanks, everybody.
Okay, anyone else?
So,
Mr. Chairman,
yeah, Mayor, the only thing out of Ways and Means is I'd like to make a motion that we accept the Marina restaurant lease proposal from the IOP Families Investment Group that's included in the packet tonight.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Discussions.
Let's get it done.
Any others? Before we go any further, I'd just like to say a couple of things during the discussions. Mr. Chairman, number one, thank you for the bullet points. Those were very helpful. I think they were helpful for our residents. I also want to, say to our residents that, when you're in negotiations, those executive sessions that we're going into over this past year had to be an executive session. We could not negotiate in public. So I apologize for all those executive sessions, but unfortunately, that's the way life had to go in this type of transaction. So again, I'm sorry, but we're there finally. Anyone else? Hearing none. Nicole.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Aye.
Councilmember Moy,
Oh, yeah.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Mayor Carroll,
A very gleeful aye.
all in favor.
Thank you.
That's it, Mayor.
Thank you very much, sir. Moving on, public safety.
Sir, looks like I'm gonna pull her up here.
Don't do what I did and lose your notes.
Yeah. We went, well, a second here. Yeah, Philip went through Ways and Means so quick. It was,
It was unexpected, Ryan, wasn't it?
I'm telling you, impressed. I gotta scroll through my minutes. Ways and Means, here we go. Oh, there we go. The Public Safety Committee met Monday, October 5th at 9 a.m. All committee members were present. The city clerk read into the record citizens' comments, and they can be found on the city's website. Under old business, we had update on the public safety building rehabilitation project. We are moved into the new building, and the process is still moving. Desiree, I don't know if you want to touch base on that at all, or where we're at with that.
On the public safety building, yes. So we are, all of the staff is moved back. The site is obviously still a construction zone. They've started working on the entrance portico and the landscaping. There are a couple of things that are still pending. The generator, the new generator has not yet been completed. The installation has not yet been completed. The old one has been removed. And then they're just working off of some punch list items throughout the building, some small things here and there. And the only other thing that will probably be the last one to come will be the flood-proof doors that are expected to be delivered sometime in December. So they may be getting installed, early January. But again, we're working with both departments to make sure that the move is as seamless as it can be, considering that there's still work to be done. But I think everybody's very happy. Chief Graham is very, very happy to be back in the building. And I know that she'll be excited to work from there until her retirement at the end of the year. And also the police department has been gracious and very happy to be back. So other than that, I don't know if the chief needs to add anything.
Chiefs, anything? Or I'll keep on moving. You got it. Well, I'll just keep on moving. I think the best part about the public safety building rehabilitation project is it's ahead of schedule and under budget. And under a budget, almost, based on our numbers, almost $1 million because of our contingencies.
Yep.
So it was good on everybody's part. Under old business, we had discussion update of implementation of paid parking on the existing public beach parking zones. And the administrator clarified that the DOT would not support the decision made by the city, the council, at our city council meeting in September, to permanently eliminating parking along the land side of Palm, but those restrictions remain in place under their current emergency ordinance. And further discussion with regards to implementing paid parking, DOT has still had some scrutiny with that in the parking plan. And so we're still working with the DOT on paid parking and which way we'll have to go with that. Because there was such an impact, we weren't sure which way DOT was going to fall on that. And we had a lot of expenditures going towards that. We've kind of put that off to this. We've decided, until we realize what DOT is going to do and until we realize what we need to do based with DOT and some of the litigation that's going on, that we'll kind of sustain or kind of wait on purchasing that equipment. We did have discussion of improvements to the ocean side of Palm Boulevard between 21st and 41st Avenues. Problem areas on the shoulders between 35th and 41st Avenues. And the administrator stated that Public Works Department will be working on some of the shoulder repair. While it is an SCDOT requirement to repair those, the cities will take on that initiative because it is a public safety issue. And that'll fall again. I mean, that's, a state right away coming out of the city's coffers. We had update on pedestrian crosswalks and intersection safety. The administrator and the chief have been speaking with the DOT about the best way to make the crosswalks more visible. And they're trying to identify the correct locations for crosswalks and the kind of infrastructure needed to have the crosswalks properly connect to ADA pads throughout the island. And Chief Cornett reported that to make them more visible, we looked at rectangular rapid flash beacons, but they need federal approval. And the two beacons, will at each crosswalk cost between $10,000 and $15,000 for the pair, and traffic studies are needed in order to put those beacons in. So it's not just going out and buying them and putting them up. There's actually a lot of work behind it. And Desiree, and I talked to you about this earlier in the week about the work that you're doing with SCDOT, and I know we had some issues with them issuing, allowing us to put in more crosswalks north of 41st. If you want to touch base on that, I think they're kind of leaning towards the way of allowing us to put in more crosswalks up that way.
We've been communicating with SCDOT and have received their analysis or assessment of the locations for new crosswalks between 42nd and 57th Avenue. I've sent those locations over to the police department, and Chief Cornett will be evaluating those with our boots on the ground and marking them on site so that we can visualize where these might go. And also, we're also working with our partners from Lowe and the Wild Dunes Resort in cost sharing and doing a public-private partnership with them in where they cover the cost of the construction and the installation of these crosswalks along that end. We're certainly concerned about the pedestrian traffic down that end. And as you all know, the new hotel is expected to open in April of next year. And all of the traffic associated with the new hotel, the existing hotel and rental will be diverted back to the back entrance at 57. So we're gonna have some more traffic there. So the idea of putting crosswalks before the opening of the hotel makes sense to ensure the safety of those folks that are crossing Palm Boulevard from Wild Dunes to go to the beach. They have been very willing partners to work with the city, and we're excited about this partnership with them to get these installed and paid for.
Perfect, thank you. We also had an update on Front Beach loading zones and parking. Along Front Beach area, there are a number of spots that are dedicated to just loading, and it's basically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I've had a lot of Front Beach businesses reach out to us, trying to see if we can find ways to make those loading zones just for a certain time frame, and then open up the parking to either beach parking or folks who want to utilize parking in that area. So the chief is working with that and trying to get pricing for restriping and increasing the amount of parking spots that we have available on Ocean Boulevard. We did have consideration and a motion from the committee for a mutual aid agreements with the city of North Charleston and the town of Somerville. So we'll be able to work with them respectively back and forth. We had discussion about the refurbishment versus replacement of the 2003 engine. We are still in discussion with that, trying to figure out if there's a way to, it may be better to purchase a new truck as opposed to refurbishing, just based on the value of the current truck. But it's something that the committee is still working on, and we'll bring that up in our next committee meeting as well with an update. Under new business, we did have discussion of some golf cart regulations and safety. The chief indicated that the department is working on addressing those carts that are not properly registered and following state law. He also indicated the code enforcement officer has reached out to those off-island golf cart rental companies to educate them about the state statute that says you can only operate a golf cart from within 4 miles of the registered address. The only exception to that is if you live within a gated community, you can operate within 4 miles of the gate. And the chief indicated and clarified that the restrictions relate to golf carts and not LSVs. And he also stated that they do, and there is one of the things we hear about quite a bit, is that they do get a number of complaints about underage drivers, and they are dealing with that, and they deal with it frequently and address it when they see it occurring. We have consideration of a recommendation for a Signal 30 award, and we will be discussing that later on in the agenda. We had discussion and consideration of changes to our alarm ordinance. Our alarm ordinance right now is kind of restrictive, and the chief would like to have some loosening regulations on it, because the ordinance addressing home alarms requires homeowners to register their alarms with the city. And this, he feels, really discourages people from having alarms, and people who have alarms on their homes are a lot better for the police department and their response times. So he's working with the ways that we can change our code in order to make that happen. Both chiefs gave their reports, and then which is available on our agenda. And our next meeting is November 2nd at 9 a.m.
Any questions? Councilmember Ward.
Silence.
Excuse me, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to ask the chairman if is this a appropriate time to consider the approval of the award, the Signal 30 award to Terry McKenzie, and if so, I'd like to make that motion.
This is the appropriate time. That's a good motion. It's on the agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Discussion. Ron, would you give us some background on this?
Yes, definitely. Yep. Let me pull it back up here. Consideration. We had Chief Graham shared with us about an island resident who was not at home. However, his disabled relative was, and their generator caught on fire. And Terry McKenzie of the water department just happened to be in the area, and he shot over there, put the fire out, went over and shut the gas off to the building. And the homeowner truly believes that had this not happened, that the fire would have extended into the house before the fire department could have arrived. And by his actions, he basically saved the structure and possibly the person's life. And so for that, we would like to offer him or give him the Signal 30 award.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Jim,
Yes, sir.
can I just ask to explain the award?
Desiree, just go ahead. It just really has to do with citizen involvement and public safety, but Desiree, I'll let you give her a better explanation.
Mm-hmm. You're muted.
Or not?
There you go.
There you go. Now you got me. All right. The city has been giving awards to citizens for their special service. They usually come as a recommendation of either a council member or a staff. I believe the last time that the city gave this presented this award was in 2015, and it's given to people who go above and beyond, save a life and do something for in the spirit of citizen service. So it's a wonderful award to receive.
Thank you.
I think that last award was down in the Wild Dune. Somebody collapsed, and
Yeah.
I think Mayor Cronin was there when that happened.
We've received, we've given out a couple. Diane O'Tork received one. for her work. Bill Pennington and Jeremy Albright. Albright, you received one as well.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
There's also been non-citizens that have received that award as well, right?
As
Rusty, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But is that, that should, if it's citizens, it should be available to both residents and non-residents.
I think there's been a couple that have been given out before, you know, people that were on vacation here or whatever that did some really good deed and got recognized. I may be wrong, but
No, you're absolutely right. The first one we gave out was June 25th in 2002, and to Alex Mason, and he was 13. We gave one out on May 24th. That was to Jack Tracy, and everybody knows Jack, he did a lot of citizen service out here.
Right.
October 25th, 2005, Matthew Smith. February 26th, Dylan Campbell. February 2008, Jeremy Augerbright. Then Bill Pennington, and Diane O'Torok was the last one that we gave out, was in 2015.
right. So it's not exclusively an island resident award. It's recognizing good
Correct.
deeds, heroic deeds
Correct. Citizen service. Yep.
on the island.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Councilmember Smith.
I just wanted to say, I appreciate this award going to Terry for many reasons. He is actually a longtime resident who has a great heart for the community. So I can't imagine anybody better to receive the award.
Great.
Okay, Councilmember Popson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I totally agree. Terry's he's very special and a longtime friend. I know we're dealing with COVID and we're all virtual, but is there a way of doing some kind of special presentation, figuring out how we could do some kind of presentation to him for the special award?
Well, we can put him on Zoom next week or next month. But at the same time, he knows about it now.
Yes.
We can certainly put together a socially distanced ceremony for the mayor to present the award. I think that would be doable and would be received well by him.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nicole, roll
Yes,
call.
sir. Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Moy, Councilmember Buchanan,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
all in favor?
Thank you very much. And Desiree, real quick, as for the law enforcement assistance and support agreement, well, you approved that. Does council need to approve this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Brian?
Yes. I'll make a motion that we approve the agreement with the both Somerville and what was the other one here?
North Charleston.
North Charleston.
Second.
Discussion. And this kind of came about, this past year, a lot of problems in downtown Charleston. We're now trying to make sure we cover all bases for all departments. Any other discussion from council members? Hearing none. Nicole?
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Moy, Councilmember Buchanan,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
all in favor?
Thank you very much. And Ryan, you gave the next meeting date.
Yes, sir. It's November 2nd.
Moving on, Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor. We had our regular meeting on Thursday, October 1st at 8 a.m. All members were present. We had our typical great reports from our director and assistant director on just basic blocking and tackling, day-to-day work, drainage, host of topics. We had an update on our small internal drainage projects. Those bids are due by Thursday. I think it is, Desiree, the 29th. Grant applications have been submitted for 2 funding opportunities from FEMA on this particular project or these projects. Phase 3 drainage is still in the design and permitting phase. We hope to submit all these permits later this month. We had continued discussion about a memorandum of understanding or tree cutting agreement with Dominion Energy before the next tree trimming cycle. We've had some really good conversations with them over the last couple of weeks. We will consider here in a moment a memorandum of understanding with the IOP Water and Sewer Commission regarding the Island Sewer Master Plan. We discussed and we'll have tonight a potential change to the zoning code. And our next meeting is Thursday, November 5th at 8 a.m. So Mayor, the only item needing vote here is an approval of a memorandum of understanding with the IOP Water and Sewer Commission regarding the Island Sewer Master Plan. So I'll make that in the form of a motion for approval of that.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
There we go. Discussion. This is, from my perspective, looking into the future for the possible sewering of all of our ponds. We have over, I think, 1,400 homes that are still on septic tank. I think the current price was somewhere over $40 million, so it's nowhere near in our budget right now. But it's looking at the future, and we need to look at the future. Councilmember Balance, yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry, Mayor, real quick. The only thing I'll add, and I know Douglas is on and he can opine, but not to put words in his mouth, but it's in the minutes that, this memorandum of understanding is just a broad document. I think the Planning Commission will continue or intends to develop a more strategic and detailed agreement with the Water and Sewer Commission over the next year or so with regard to the island-wide sewer expansion. So this document's just kind of a starting point, if you will. We've got the island-wide sewer plan. That part of that was attached to the package for tonight. So there'll be more meat put around this and tactics put around this as we walk forward.
Okay, Councilmember Moy.
And I'm sorry, just to pile on one more comment that we also have, of course, our strategic planning coming up. And this is one of several significant infrastructure and capital improvement projects that we have on the long-term horizon. And it's easy to address. I shouldn't say it's easy, but it's much easier to address the problems that we can do sort of in one fell swoop than we have to do like the public safety building and the docks, things that we have to do and continually put off these really long-term investments. And what I'm encouraged with the memorandum of understanding in terms of casting a shared vision with our partners at the Water and Sewer Commission, and certainly very grateful that we have an incredibly capable planning commission leading the strategy behind that. So,
Anyone else? Hearing none. Nicole?
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan, Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward, you're on mute.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember, Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
all in favor?
Thank you.
Mayor, that's it.
Thank you very much, sir. Moving on, recreation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recreation Committee met at 5 p.m. on Monday, October 5th with all members and staff, appropriate staff present. Our director, Norma Jean Page, gave us an update on all activities. It's good to know that things are, there are a lot of activities going on in the rec department right now. So I encourage anybody who is looking for involvement to check out the recreation department's new Facebook page, which will help tune you in, or grab a copy of the activities guide that's out there. They are being very mindful of COVID and taking that, have taken special steps to keep everybody safe. Otherwise, important to note, since it is October, that ghostly tide tales, a longstanding favorite tradition, continued this on the beach. This time it was at Front Beach. I think they had a great crowd and involvement with crab pot players this past Saturday. I understand it was a hit. And also, of course, coming up on this Saturday is Halloween, and we're doing things a little bit differently this year with a golf cart parade with decorated for Halloween golf carts. I believe we are already full of registrants for the parade, but of course people can enjoy watching the parade either by going to the rec center. Note that it starts at 4 p.m. sharp. That's like Easter egg hunt sharp, so don't be late. But they will be winding through some of those streets around that area, so you might be able to view it from your front porch steps. You can check out all the details. There's also going to be food trucks, I believe, and that's also on the Facebook page. And I'm sure will be in other locations if you need to look for that information. Finally, I will just say that we did have, after our meeting, some concerns came up that I wanted to just mention involving the recreation fields, and some participants at soccer got a blue fertilizer dye got on their hands and feet, and just wanted to let people know that that is fertilizer that the recreation center uses. It's not absorbed through the skin, not considered to be hazardous. It is a non-toxic, non-corrosive dye. But we are aware and concerned that happened, and we'll be discussing it further at our next recreation committee meeting. And also, we had already started a conversation about some other, treatments that are used at the recreation center. So that is an ongoing conversation, and appreciate everybody's understanding on that. Here ends my report. We will meet again at the beginning of November at the first Monday, which will be Monday, November 2nd at 5 p.m.
Very good. Any questions for recreation? I have one question. If I'm not mistaken, I think we had 60 golf carts registered for this parade, and they're all street legal.
That's correct. We have 60. They'll line up on 27th. We have all the spaces numbered, so they'll back into their space, and they'll file out one at a time. It's a total social distancing event. No one's allowed out of their golf carts. We'll go, like Councilwoman Smith said, we'll go up 27th down Hartnett. We'll take a right on 22nd, another right on Waterway, come back up 29th, and then back on 28th or Hartnett to 28th, where we'll have a drive-through haunted house. Folks can go through the haunted house, so they can go around and go directly to the roundabout to get their treat. We'll have treat bags for all the children on the golf carts. As they exit the property on 28th, they'll turn right onto Hartnett, and between Hartnett, 28th and 27th, there'll be 3 food trucks. There'll be distance, so the golf carts can just pull in, get their order, take the order home, and enjoy their food at home. So we look forward to it. It's our first time doing it this way, but we're excited about it. All the golf carts have to have their permits. We've had some that had to go back and get permits. They did not have them. So we're making sure everyone's legal and they have the proper insurance in order to operate in this parade. So police department and fire department are working with me. They've been great to work with, and I think we're all excited about making this happen on Saturday.
I'm impressed that y'all have been very COVID-19 adaptable.
It's
Moving on, personnel.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Personnel Committee meeting met at 9 a.m. on Thursday, October the 8th. We had 3 main items on our agenda. We started with an update on the wage and compensation study. The staff is still working on the RFP, and we're hoping to receive applications for that RFP by November the 6th. So we've actually delayed our November meeting so that it can coincide with the having received and reviewed those applications so that we can discuss in our committee meeting. So we hope to kick that off and still have the results of that study in hand when budgeting comes around for the next fiscal year. So as far as can be told, we're on track for that, we hope. No real updates other than that. The next item on the agenda was the hiring update on the hiring of an HR payroll officer. That position is open until filled. We're still receiving applications. There are no duties that are being unmet. This was a position that was created within the last, 5 years, Desiree, give or take? The last 3 years. So our department heads are fully capable of taking on the duties. So nothing is falling through the cracks. No one is overly stressed. It's still a position that we need. But leaving it open to find the right person is the move that staff wants to take, that we commend them and agree with. Finally, as you all know, and probably most of our residents and community know, we're incredibly heartbroken and upset, but also celebrate the chief and her new move in life, taking a step back and retiring. We would love for you to stay, but understand that there's a time to move on. So the staff put forth the proposed process for hiring a new chief. We did learn some things over the course of the last year and a half, making 2 significant hires with the chief of police and the city administrator. I'll just hit on a couple of highlights. That the big thing that we learned was, we engaged a professional recruiting agency, which had certainly its pros and cons. One of the biggest cons was that we felt like it really slowed us down and prevented us from expediting the hire of those really key important positions. And so one of the changes that we're making with our process is to start without the use of a recruiting agency. We can always go back if we have trouble finding qualified candidates and bring in a recruiting agency to help us find more qualified applicants. But we feel like, given the success that we had in recruiting really strong candidates for those other 2 positions, we can expect to find similar success. And so the city staff has laid out a timeline that we hope coincides fairly closely with the final date of employment for Chief Cram, which is the end of this year, December 31st. So we've got a pretty aggressive timeline. I believe the city has already started advertising the position. Yes, I see Desiree nodding. Thank you. And the process will follow pretty similar to what we did previously, and that will bring candidates in. The staff will do an initial screening for minimum qualifications. The candidates will go through an assessment process that's highly objective, and then be put through an interview process with both the Public Safety Committee and the Personnel Committee, who will make a joint recommendation based on objective scoring methodology through the hiring process, through the interview process, to the rest of council. Desiree, please chime in if I missed any major things.
You nailed it.
As I mentioned, we are convening again on November the 12th to hopefully have the results of the RFP from the wage and compensation study. And obviously we'll have some updates on the hiring process for both of those open positions as well. That's all I got. So when's my report?
Okay, do we have any questions for personnel? I have one question. Desiree, have we had any applications for fire chief yet?
I have not received any. I have received calls of people who are interested to learn more about the position. So I'm thinking that in the next week or so, we'll be receiving a handful of them.
Very good. Thank you. John, great report. Thank you very much. Real property.
You're muted, Brian.
Gotcha. The Real Property Committee met Wednesday, October 7th at 1 o'clock. All committee members were present. The city clerk read the citizens' comments into the record, and they can be found on the city's website. Under old business, we had update on the Marina dock permitting. The administrator reported that all permits had been received. And she added that while the Army Corps of Engineers wanted the encroachment work on the floating dock done as soon as possible, that they only just approved the permitting process for the work to complete the work. And so we're gonna try to work that into the dock rehabilitation program. And the administrator stated that Selman's Dredging will evaluate the cost and timeline of moving the dock back while on site for the rehabilitation project, in hopes that that cost can be tied into the contract as a change order. We had an update on the dock rehabilitation project. And as everybody knows, the council approved the award of the contract last month, and we've been working on getting the documents and getting them executed by all parties. We've had a couple of meetings down there with pre-construction meetings, and we've also had a couple of things going on down there. The docks are ready to be replaced. They are beyond, not at their life's end, but beyond their life's end now. And so hopefully we'll be able to get that moving forward and start working on that and getting, the first part of the project would be the rehabilitation of the seawall, and then moving it forward to getting the docks in right after the first of the year. We had update on the Marina restaurant lease proposal. And as we discussed earlier, and we passed that. We had an update on our proposed ADA compliant beach walkover. It still says observation deck at 42nd Avenue, and it's not an observation deck. It's just basically an area that you can move off to the side. And we made some changes to that, or trying to make some changes to that. And we're going to reach out to the Greenbelt Fund to determine if the changes that we want to make will require another pass through the approval process with the county. Basically, instead of an elevated walkway, we're basically using a product of almost like a rollout 8-foot wide epay decking that both can be used as for emergency vehicles and make it ADA compliant. And we're still working on that, trying to get trying to get the finance for that, both through the county, and trying to determine, because it would go beyond our what we need for bidding processes, would have to put it out for bid as well. So, but we're still working on that. The Greenbelt Fund awarded the city $100,000 for the original project, and this one right now is coming in at $75,000, based on some of the information that we've gathered from other cities. Under new business, we had discussion about addressing the flooding issues on the beach access paths, and we really want to identify the areas that present the most flooding concerns, and then correlate that to crosswalks and safer areas where the public can cross and access the beach without being flooded consistently. So trying to find ways to create an elevated walkway from somewhere near the roadway up to the dune ridge. We've had discussions on next steps for the development of the public dock and green space at the Isle of Palms Marina. Under that discussion, we had the idea of bringing back the conceptual plans created prior to the 2017 referendum that could be used as a reference or a starting point in how to create a resident water accessible area. And that's something the committee will continue to work on, and with input from the city and its residents. Our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, November 4th, and that ends my report. There's no motions to be made.
Great report. Any questions?
Got one, Mr. Mayor. If to the chairman of the real property, if we elevate or look at elevating our access paths, don't we have to be really careful that we don't have runoff into adjacent property?
Correct. That's if we were to elevate them with fill, and basically it wouldn't be a sand fill. It'd basically be something similar to what you see on Sullivan's Island, just an elevated path where water can still go underneath. It's just you're not going to be able to go through, and you're not going to tread through water. You'll be walking across almost a boardwalk.
Okay, thanks.
So, yeah, we don't want to. You don't want to push water other places.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Chairman, to follow up with what Rusty said, I went down to see the first full moon of this month, and I was trying to get down to the beach and walking through water, probably a quarter mile down the beach, trying to find a path I could walk through again filled with water. So this is something that we really need to address. There's no doubt about that. But thank you very much for.
Yeah, and it's only getting worse, and we're really, and we're trying to find the most problematic area, the most accessible areas, and probably those areas closest to the crosswalks to try to guide folks to the crosswalks and utilize the crosswalks, and get them to beach visitors to use them, and then go out to the beach that way.
Very good. Thank you very much.
I think
Moving
Susan has a question.
Yeah, not a question, just to chime in and say that I'm really glad to see us getting serious about the beach pass and being smart about how we go about it in terms of getting people across without them having to get wet or just not being able to get there at all. That is critical in terms of access, and especially as we see tides and storms, rain bombs, we've got to be able to continue to get people over to the beach. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no hands, moving on. Reports from city officers, boards, and commissions. Accommodations Tax Advisory, no meeting. Board of Zoning Appeals, no meeting. Planning Commission, the minutes are attached. Reports from special or joint committees, none. Petitions received, referred, disposed of, none. Bills already in possession of council, none. Introduction of new bills, resolutions, and proclamations. First up, about 2020-10, an ordinance to amend the city's zoning ordinance to allow sewer pump stations in the SR1 single residential district. Do I have a motion to approve first reading by title only?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, discussions. We have a couple people with us tonight from the water and sewer. We have Chris Jordan, and I think Jay Lee. I'm not sure. I don't see him, but Chris, you with us? There, both of you are.
Yeah, we're here.
All right, you want to give us a little background on this for our residents to hear?
Before they do, it's just a question for point of order.
Yes, ma'am.
Because this is title being done by title only, do you guys have to make a motion to allow for discussion tonight?
That's how, yeah, we've typically done that. So I think the motion could include to approve first reading and allow some discussion.
Okay. Is that okay for Councilmember Pounds and Councilmember Popson to allow for discussion in their motion?
Certainly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. I think this is important. Okay, Chris, Jay?
Good evening. How y'all doing? We muted?
No,
We're good. As we've talked about this quite a few times, the future of the island and the sewering of the island is going to require lift stations. Specifically, the ordinance in question is involving a piece of property on 7th Avenue and Palm Boulevard that's been deemed a suitable location for a small lift station somewhere in the future. That could be 5 years from now, it could be 3 years from now. We really don't know. But as time goes on in that particular area, there's going to be a need for additional lift stations, smaller ones because they're further distance away from the Forest Trail plant. It's going to be consolidated. So to get the verbiage from what our discussions with Douglas has been is to get that clarified now. So as time goes on, we won't have to address this again. The locations will come up, and there might be some right of ways that the city already owns that can be utilized in the future. But just to get the verbiage squared away now and to press on with this first one is where we're at. We have our special projects manager, Bill Jenkins, has reached out to the immediate property owners around the lot on 7th Avenue. And from my understanding has gotten pretty favorable response for something like that, including the park that we haven't discussed yet, as opposed to a home being built there. The one question that, and we'll be addressing this with the Planning Commission tomorrow, is the odor scenario. The smaller stations, typically and along Ocean Boulevard, there's quite a few of them that there has never been a problem with odor. And we're anticipating that to be the case with this one as the other ones as well. But with the containment processes that are in place now and the future with the development of newer technologies, we just don't see this to be an issue. So that's kind of that in a nutshell. If there's any questions, specific to that, we can address that right now.
Do y'all have questions? Yes, sir. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chris and Jay. Just a question of, what's the alternative? If we want to sewer the whole island, what's the alternative that we have to this?
From a gravity standpoint, there's not. I mean, grinder pumps, the proliferation of grinder pumps and the potential headaches and nightmares really could create more of an environmental issue than a malfunctioning septic tank. We know we need electricity to run a grinder pump. If we have a power outage and the house is being used, there's a limited supply of space before we're going to have an overflow. Whereas a septic tank, as long as the drain field is maintained properly in the tank, that's not a problem. So from an environmental standpoint, the grinder pumps they're bad. I mean, they're functional, they work, but that's not the ideal scenario. A lot of people, with septic systems, if you're in a high lot or high area, they work fine. So, our big concern is somewhere down the road, DHEC may come in and say, okay, folks, as of 2025, thou shalt not have any more septic tank permits issued. And that'd be a real problem. So, and I think we've been discussing a 10-year plan. And with this memorandum of understanding, as Philip pointed out, it's fluid. It's kind of a guideline or framework for the future, and we just have to work it. Just blend it with the time.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Councilmember Bell.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think we've got to get to a citywide plan. I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts. My concern here isn't, the one triangular property. It's a broad-based zoning change without a lot of citizen input at this point, without us actually working within the boundaries of an MOU with the Planning Commission to understand how we get there strategically long-term. If this were coming, this is my own opinion, if it were coming just as a singular piece of property and what do we want to do with it, I'm, probably kind of okay as long as the residents are. But this really says open up SR1 single residential district properties to the desires of the Water and Sewer Commission without community input. And I just think that's a very, very slippery slope for us before we have a comprehensive plan. And I don't mean comprehensive plan in the terms the city has used as a comprehensive plan. We've got to get there, but I would encourage to work back through the Planning Commission and get this MOU going and tell us where we're going and have the council support, because it's going to require a lot of money over a long period of time, as Councilmember Moy stated.
I believe our engineering firm, who is your firm as well, have identified, if completely or pretty close to complete locations of where they might be. And some of them may be impacting residential homes. There might be, as I said earlier, some easement, city property, or things that could be utilized. And I would tend to agree, Randy, that to broad brush a zoning change, it might need to be tweaked. Take this one as a stepping stone, and as it goes on, after identifying the future locations, and then identify them as they come up.
Yeah, this might be for Douglas, but you would then need to go before BOZA on an exception on a single piece of property. Is that not correct?
I sat on BOZA for a while, and getting a zoning change, it's almost an oxymoron with a Board of Zoning Appeals, because that never was appealed. Nothing was ever changed without going to City Council to have the ordinance changed. So that's kind of where that would lie. I believe Douglas could address that.
Yeah. So the way the ordinance that's being considered tonight is worded, it would be approved at a staff level for just a sewer pump station. So other things like another expansion of the the sewer treatment facility, that would have to go before BOZA unless it was over an acre, which that.
But Douglas, the question is for all SR1 zoned lots, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that's and I would just add that the Planning Commission had the same concern, Randy, that I think you're expressing, that the way it's written now, basically, as long as the lift station is less than 1,000 square feet, it would be approved at staff level. What they're going to be, so the Planning Commission is going to be meeting with the Water and Sewer Commission tomorrow, primarily to try to establish what I would call performance criteria. The things that were brought up at their last meeting were odor control, screening, buffering, vegetation. So I think they want to come up with basically a template of how these things should be done and modify the code to say if they're done according to that template, they could go where they're currently planned to go. So that discussion will happen tomorrow. And so we would hope that they would forward a recommendation for amendments at your November meeting. I do think that time is a factor for this particular piece of property. So they're holding a special meeting to hopefully get some recommendations for you next month.
Anyone else? I don't mind chiming in here. I agree with Councilmember Bell. I know that this triangle piece of land is critical for y'all and it's available. But I have grave concerns with is it 12 or is it 15 different potential sites for stations throughout the island for the future?
And I don't have that exact number. I don't know if Mark Yotis is 15. Chris 16. Chris advised me that it is 15. The footprint of them, again, from my understanding, 1,000 foot is probably more than any one of them would be. There were probably more 16 total, including the one on 7th Avenue. But the footprint, 500, 600 square feet on an average.
Or smaller.
Or smaller. So again, it depends on the location. And again, Mark Yotis tomorrow with at the Planning Commission meeting, we'll have a better handle on that. But as I said, it's all fluid right now as to the demand and need and the timing.
Yeah.
This is Councilmember.
If there's any way, I mean, obviously it sounds like there's going to be a big meeting tomorrow. Some more discussion, some more information brought out. I know we have to have a special meeting next week to ratify the lease agreement. Is there any way that we can piggyback on that special meeting next week? Any information that comes out at tomorrow's meeting with the Water and Sewer Department to vote on this, if it makes any changes?
Well, my understanding is the first reading is simply that in name only. By the time the next meeting comes about, we should have a plethora of information to the Planning Commission, Public Works, whoever else. And then by the time this next meeting comes about with a second reading, then that would be really where the rubber meets the road so far as an ultimate decision.
Okay.
So that's y'all's call, but if you're gonna have a special meeting, that's certainly your call.
Desiree, Councilmember Smith and Desiree.
Okay, thank you. So let me just clarify what I'm hearing is that while we are most urgently concerned with this one location of the triangle piece of land off of Palm Boulevard, my understanding from our Public Works Committee meeting was that that map of Thomas and Hutton, where they had talked about placement of other pumping stations, that was not necessarily, that was just suggested sites. It wasn't necessarily where they would place them. And Douglas, maybe you could speak to that, because I thought you were saying that those were suggestions.
It's,
Because-
Chris just tells, it's an approximate location, but
Okay.
that particular lot, the location specifically, inside the circle, if you're referring to the drawings. So, I mean, it's, the specific location, if it fits better 10 feet away or 20, but that's a pretty general location.
So that map does give you a general idea of where we're talking about in the future placing pumping stations down the line. But is what you're saying is that it could come but get a stamp of approval from staff, and that placement would not necessarily go before any body for official approval, neither the Water and Sewer Commission nor the City Council? Is that what I'm hearing? Because I didn't understand that from our committee meeting.
That's, I think, is going to be a Douglas question, because I'm not quite sure how your staff, if we, and I'm just going to pick a spot on Ocean Boulevard by 3rd Avenue as an example. If it's deemed this would be a great spot for, and it's going to be 350 square feet. And again, I'm going to defer to Douglas. Does that mean that the staff could say, okay, let's do it? If our engineering firm says this would be a good spot and we want to do one here. So I'm not clear on that either, to be honest with you.
So the way it would work, the master plan has a ring, and typically that ring, includes, let's say, between 5 and 10 properties. That would be the ideal location. The Water and Sewer Commission would have to secure one of those properties. And the way it's currently planned to be is if they are successful in securing that site, the ordinance would allow them to basically build it in accordance with the standards that we're hopeful that the Planning Commission will develop between now and second reading. Things such as fencing, odor control, buffering, things of that nature. So it would be, a lot like a house is now. An owner acquires the land. They, if they show compliance with the standards in the code, their permit is issued as a use of right, and they proceed. So that every, and I think to some degree it would be, that is probably the most fair policy, because I think otherwise you start getting into, politicizing the location, and, you're going to have each one of these locations is probably going to have a reaction from somebody that could cause problems.
That's what scares me, Douglas. I see Mark Yotis is online with us. Mark, do you have?
Oh, well, just one more thing. I did want to point out, which came up in our Public Works Committee discussion, is that these stations are a lot smaller than is my understanding from, for example, the one on Waterway Boulevard that many people may be familiar with by the golf course, which I think is important to note. We're talking about something smaller than that, correct?
Probably a half to a third the size. So yeah, much smaller footprint.
Okay.
But Susan, just to clarify, as the pump stations get closer to the sewer treatment facility at 41st and Waterway, they will get bigger. So this change, while we're focusing on 7, this change would affect all 16 of the future pump stations. So they will get, maybe not to 1,000 square feet, but bigger than the one at 7th that's being considered.
Oh, okay. So if it's closer to the water treatment station, it may actually be bigger than that one that's already existing on Waterway, but farther away, it'll be smaller.
It won't be any bigger than that.
Okay.
Okay. 29th and Waterway is the one you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it won't be any bigger.
Okay. Thank you.
Mark, do you have anything you can add to this discussion?
I do want to confirm to the existing island, including Wild Dunes, as like 20 4 pump stations, so it's not like it's unusual. We looked at having 16 more pump stations to sewer the unsewered areas. And the reason for that mainly is that we wanted to limit the depth of the pipe that's put in the ground. You know, all gravity sewers got to go on gravity, so there's a slope. You got to start out so deep and you run at that slope until you get to a point that it's becoming unmanageable. And we picked the number of 10 to 12 feet. Anything over that, the costs go up, the construction scar, the zone gets really, really big. It slows down because there's a lot more work to do and more backfilling. So in a developed area, we wanted to limit that to lower costs and lower the disturbance to the residents. Therefore, that's kind of what sets, when you look at a grid pattern, how many pump stations there are. But there would be over the course of who knows how long. We did propose, say, 2 templates of a pump station, a 20 by 20 and a 30 by 30 pump station size. Now that doesn't include, any kind of, formal landscape buffering. Because, if you want to landscape or buffer something, 10 foot is absolute minimum. 15 foot's probably a better target, but you probably can't get 15 foot all the way around, and it certainly would eat up 1,000 square foot really quick. So that's what we did, and we identified this triangle piece of property as a potential because it had no houses on it. It makes sense to serve the basin that we were looking at. So I don't know if that helps or not.
Councilmember Bell.
Yeah, just kind of summarize. It seems impractical to ask planning to have, full opinion within a week. So back to Councilmember Buchanan's, hope to put it on the special property committee meeting. And if you're looking at this across 15 properties, you're looking about $8 million in a very long term. So it just feels like the urgency is around securing one of 15 pieces of property, which presumes for me that there are some alternatives, but it just feels rushed and premature to change the zoning ordinance. And, it's difficult. And I understand the desire for that property. I truly do, but I'd love to see us have a more comprehensive plan.
Desiree, you have a question or suggestion?
Oh, just a quick clarification. A zoning ordinance would require a public hearing, and that needs to be advertised 15 days before the actual vote for second reading. So we couldn't possibly include it on next week's agenda. We'd have to go through that process of just a clarification on it.
I understand, Councilmember Pounds.
Go ahead, Mayor.
I understand the need for going forward with the triangle piece of land at 7th. It's available. It may not be available forever, but I do have problems with the other 15 sites and not knowing, if it were next to my house and knowing the ramifications of 29th and Waterway, I would not like that next to my house or one house down from my house. Yes, sir, Mark.
But let me say a couple of things. First of all, most places allow a utility track for sewer pump stations. Sometimes it specifically talks about sewer or lift stations or pump stations. So it's a little unusual that hasn't occurred on Isle of Palms, but given the way it was developed over history, it's very easy to understand that. It's also easy to pick on pump station 29 because it's not the best looking from aesthetic appeal. It had some odor problems, which the commission has addressed. But going forward, you can design and incorporate a lot of techniques that help mitigate noise, odor, light pollution, that kind of stuff. And I think the commission has already talked about doing that. I don't know that you can, you want to specifically identify every single piece of property, because as soon as you do, you're going to be locked in. And, there may be something that comes up in a year or two that might be a great, low hanging fruit that you go get, or it may just work out really well. But there are ways to mitigate what it keeps being put up to me as like the standard. There are probably some pump stations on the island you don't know are there. I can guarantee you there are probably 95% of the pump stations on Kiawah Island, which Thomas has done, that you can't even find when you drive by them. So I would offer that because it can be done. The question is, do you do it today or do you do it at each one of those developments? When you put a pump station in, that's when you want to look at it, exactly where it goes, what it's affecting, what the technology is at that date, because it's changing. So, odor control is getting better, noises are getting less, et cetera, et cetera.
Councilmember Pounds.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think a couple of things. We've been having this conversation for quite some time over the last number of months. And I think, Randy, to extrapolate that this is going to be an $8 million land grab is not right. I mean, some of this is going to go on public right of way somewhere along the way. I mean, who knows? There's not going to be a lot available, every time there's a pump station need, certainly. So that's a who knows what that number is going to look like from a land standpoint. This piece of property came up. There's nothing on it, to Jay's point. Seemed like a good idea. Turn it into green space until we need it. We may need a part of that property for underground electric utility box as well. So, it just kind of served itself up. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. We're just gonna have to find another place to put that piece of that equipment whenever we get to that point. We are going to have to do something, and I think we trust the water and sewer guys and the planning commission to come up with a good plan in the next 30 days. We don't need to rush this. We need to come up with a good standard with regard to landscaping and odor control and all the pieces that are being discussed. So I think we, get past first reading, let that happen. And if we don't like what the amendments look like, we deal with it next month at the next council meeting. But we're going to have to do something if we are serious about sewer in the island, obviously.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Got one final comment.
Yes, sir.
As a concession of sorts, and again, if we're going to work together, do make the first reading on this subject to the planning commission and our meetings coming up. If it doesn't work out at the second reading, then, we go back to the drawing board. And to what you were saying, and I think what Randy Bell is saying, it may need a little more research for the future other properties, right? So that's something, again, with our efforts and the planning commission's efforts, we can come up with a plan. But to Philip's point, if now's the time to, if the iron's hot, now's the time to strike. So let's not waste too much more time in discussions.
Okay. Anyone else? Hearing none. Nicole?
Councilmember Streetman.
Aye.
Councilmember Bell.
Aye.
Councilmember Popson.
Oh, aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Moy.
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds.
Aye.
Mayor Carroll.
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you very much. Ordinance 2020-11, an ordinance to amend the regulations of alarm systems. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to amend. Motion to amend.
Okay, who did the second?
Councilmember Moy.
Okay. First reading by title only. I don't think we need to go any further. Nicole?
Councilmember Pounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Ward. Councilmember Moy.
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Popson.
Aye.
Councilmember Bell.
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman.
Aye.
Mayor Carroll.
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you very much. Moving on. Ordinance 2020-12, an ordinance to enter into a commercial lease marker 116 LLC. I'd like to make a motion to approve first reading by title only and with discussion. We have John Chaffee who would like to give some discussion tonight.
I'll second.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor and Council. Appreciate your time. Just wanted to add a couple comments, broad comments, and maybe touch on some things that were mentioned earlier. Number one, I thought that our attorney did a fantastic job, Brian Kitts. Julia recommended him, and he was bang up, and I thought he did a great job for the city here. A big improvement on the lease that we inherited from the Morgan Creek Grill. Number two, we did put a provision in that the city, the residents wanted a sit-down restaurant, and that is what is in this lease. It is a sit-down only restaurant as a permitted use. There is the tenant is providing a personal guarantee on the lease just up until the point where they complete the building. So they can't, they are guaranteeing that they're going to at least improve the building and complete it to finish, which I think protects the city as well. And then, as Councilwoman Smith had mentioned, and I think it was mentioned on the presentation, the idea coming in here was, in addition to not spending any money, I thought we really wanted to try to line this up to the Marina lease so our next generation could figure out a broad picture for the Marina site if they wanted to go in a different direction. But frankly, I really wanted to tip my hat to the council, because I think the council and others have taken some heat for how long this process has taken. And I think, and while this is nature of the beast, frankly, the Morgan Creek Grill lease, let me remind everyone, was not supposed to expire until this month. So had Morgan Creek Grill continued to operate as was the terms of the lease and how is everyone planning, the lease timing here would be perfect, and it would be frankly seamless. So just wanted to kind of throw that out as a commending the foresight to at least start the process early enough that had Morgan Creek Grill honored the base term, the remainder of their lease, that was our timing would have been impeccable. So that was it.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions, council members? Hearing none, seeing none. Nicole?
Okay, sorry, just taking notes. Councilmember Pounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilmember Moy.
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman.
Aye.
Councilmember Bell.
Aye.
Councilmember Popson.
Aye.
Mayor Carroll.
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you very much. 2020-13 ordinance, Fifth Amendment to Commercial Lease Agreement to Marina Joint Ventures LLC. Do I hear a motion to approve first reading by title only?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We don't need to go any further. Nicole?
Councilmember Streetman.
Aye.
Councilmember Bell.
Aye.
Councilmember Popson. Councilmember Moy.
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds.
Aye.
Mayor Carroll.
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you very much. Miscellaneous business. Next meeting, of course, is 6 p.m. Tuesday, November 17th. And probably a fun one here. Discussion of conducting an economic analysis of taking ownership, control, and maintenance of SCDOT roads. I asked to put this on there just for everything we've been going through. I look at the road conditions, the right-of-way conditions along Palm Boulevard, and what they have or have not been maintaining. And I just wanted to kind of get the feel of council of possibly looking into this. I think Desiree has put a request out to SCDOT as for what they have been doing over the last 30 years for road maintenance, drainage maintenance, just so we kind of know what's going on. So I'm going to put this out there for council to have any discussions or questions.
Motion to adjourn.
Councilmember Bell.
Yeah, I just, we've all, certainly been empathetic, at times sympathetic to listening to the concerns of residents and non-residents. The largest question I have here still is it is amazing to me that, we all talk about the SCDOT requirements of road maintenance. It just feels like they are the ones remiss in not maintaining the roads. We've got disaster areas along there. And I would hope as we have these discussions that, Donnie Pitts from Public Works weighs in on what we've spent as a city for the responsibilities of SCDOT. Personally, I believe the city should be roping off some of these areas and just saying if SCDOT is not going to do their job and honor their obligations for these roads, that we as a community have the right to rope them off and say then therefore they're not available to anybody, residents or non-residents, because the 1-foot ruts, the destruction of property, the careless disregard of this property, I think for most residents and anyone visiting that cares about the Isle of Palms, it should be abhorrent. It should just simply not be allowed.
Thank you. Councilmember Streetman.
Yes, just to build on that a little bit. I mean, certainly, particularly if you look at the beach side, 37th to 39th, I mean, it is nothing but ruts. We've got red fencing down there. It's been there for weeks. It's unsightly, very unsightly. And we have other areas along Palm that's just as bad, actually. And nothing's been done. And I know the committees have been trying to work with it. I know that Ryan and his committee, public safety, and there's been a lot of at least reaching out to DOT to see what we can do. I know in Public Works, when we have our monthly meetings, we repeatedly ask Robert Acero and in regards to DOT and where we are, and we're in some sort of cycle with them that they only call on us at a certain time, and it's obviously a very slow cycle because we really don't get any real follow-up from DOT that you would expect that we would get, given the noise or at least the questions that we're raising about those shoulders. The other thing is, I guess I'm wondering, have we had any real serious discussion with SCDOT about us having ownership of Palm Boulevard? Or, I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. I know that it's been floated out there before. I've only been on council 7 months, and I've heard it, in the past that we've had at least some discussion or at least some indication that SCDOT would turn Palm Boulevard over if they, if you wanted to take care of it yourself. So I don't know. I'm just asking the question here, just for better understanding.
I know before, when I was early on council, floated out there by Mayor Cronin about possibly taking over the roads, and there was no appetite at all at that time. But I don't know if that was a valid, offer from SCDOT. But I think we probably should send this to the Planning Commission and kind of let them do some research. And Desiree, please.
I just wanted to respond to that. It's not the first time that the city has had a conversation about taking over the roads. Back in 2013 and 2014, there was some discussion, and at one point, some estimates were provided. Again, these are 7-8-year-old estimates of the cost of maintaining, and it exceeded, the $1 million for the city. So the city has historically shied away from taking over the roads just because of the long-term significant cost to the taxpayer. So it has been talked about in the past, whether the city has made any official request to DOT. I don't believe the city has, just because of the long-term cost that this would mean. And the fact that the city would not only be taking over the roads, but the city would also be taking over all of the infrastructure under the road that we don't even know, how it is, where it is, and in what condition it is. So it's a big ask and a long process to get down that road, and one that I suggest that it's done thoughtfully and carefully, and making sure that everything is considered as it relates to this massive initiative.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith and then Popson. You're mute.
Sorry. First, a point of clarification. If with our city administrator, you mentioned a cost of $1 million. That is on an annual basis, correct?
That is correct. It's estimated about at that point, $31,000 per mile.
Okay. So given that extraordinary figure, which is actually a little bit outdated, and I believe the current tone, I think we need to be really careful about with our neighboring communities who are obviously very concerned about actions that we're taking around parking. I just feel like to say that we're looking seriously or even considering taking over Palm Boulevard, I just don't personally feel that the timing is right now for us to be pursuing that. And I think we should be spending more of our time trying to connect with our neighbors and figure out some of our other parking issues that are more immediate.
Thank you. Councilmember Popson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2002, I took over the management of Dunes West, a private community with over 20 miles of roads behind the gate that the residents own. And we were in charge, not from just a development standpoint, but also from a homeowners association, for owning and maintaining those roads, potholes, calls, staff time. It's a nightmare. We do not want to own roads. And back to Desiree's point, you've got street signs, you've got street lights. All of that comes with this that we're going to have to manage and own and maintain. And I think we're looking at a lot of cost every year for many, many, many years.
Thank you, sir.
Just my 2 cents, Mayor.
Douglas.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we have actually asked the DOT at least twice in my time about Palm Boulevard, and they have indicated basically that they would give us any road except for Palm Boulevard because it is a South Carolina highway, that they would not, they've historically said they would give us basically anything else, but not Palm.
Okay, that's good information right there. Thank you very much. Any Councilman Streetman?
Yeah, well, it would seem from what Douglas just said, it would seem to me that even if we send it back to Planning Commission, we're really discussing something that can't be done anyway. So I think we all want to see a situation on Palm Boulevard where it's safe for everyone. And, but I just, at this point right here, I can't see that there's a path forward, in regards to the Planning Commission spending a lot of time on this until we have total clarification from SCDOT as to what we can or can't do.
I think Douglas gave us good clarification. I would just like to see SCDOT step up to the plate and start taking care of those right-of-ways that are becoming mud holes for everybody and a safety problem.
Yeah.
So, Councilman Bell.
I was going to say too, I was going to make the same comment. I mean, the broader question is how do we get SCDOT to do their job? And I think, we've got to stop playing defense and play offense on them doing their job, because frankly, it is unacceptable to have the standing water and the mess that we have if they're indeed responsible for those roads. And, we keep, and it's funny, we hear from everybody that we're not maintaining our highways to the non-resident satisfaction. It's because we're not responsible for those areas. SCDOT is responsible, and they need to step up to the plate, do their job, and we as the city and the council need to hold them accountable.
And stop blaming us.
That's right.
Anyone else? Hearing none. Ryan, did I hear you say something about a motion to adjourn?
I did. Motion to adjourn.
Second.